it's not an item, nothing by myself. All right, here we go. We're live streaming on YouTube. Susan, Michelle, Myrna, Skoller, Gloria, and like this mic is all yours.
Hi, this is Susan Michel. I am here in Massachusetts. It is so great to be here, and I'm so excited. My two beautiful Course in Miracles soul sisters are here with me today, Myrna Skoller and Glorian. I am the author of Surrender to Joy, From Suicide to Serenity. I teach the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles, which we're all here to study, to learn, to embody the knowledge of. Myrna is the author of Private Lessons with Jesus, that I love, 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 which goes perfectly with the workbook for students. And she is also the author of at least 5 other books. One just came in the mail, Love's Chosen Destiny. I have that with me today too, which I started reading, and it's absolutely brilliant. So, how are you today, Myrna?
I'm terrific. I really am. And I can honestly say that with a full heart because, I was kind of up and down since the procedure that I had the end of October, but now I'm perfect, really. And later I'll talk a little bit about that because there was a whole revelation that came from that we call it a miracle. I call it a miracle anyway. But right now I'm really super duper. And how about you, Susan?
I'm doing well, especially being here with you two. How are you, Glorian?
Hi, Glorian.
Oh, I'm doing well, thank you. Very good. Glad to be here with you.
You did quite it was quite a session before, really, and we got quite an audience. It was Joel Goldsmith, was
I
it
just
not?
try to get out of the way and whatever.
It was great,
Thank
really.
you. Thank you.
Nice reading.
So I will start with my usual introduction in my book, Surrender to Joy. The first paragraph of the introduction was downloaded to me, and I always like to begin with that. I mean, the truth is, okay, Course in Miracles tells us only the love is real. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So when I am connected to the joy within myself, I am readying myself to be a miracle worker. I am readying myself to be a conduit for God's divine love. And so, A Course in Miracles is a book in mind training to focus on the love more and more often. So, in my first paragraph, I write, my passion is God. God is love and joy and beauty. He is all that is good in the world. Everything else is our own miscreation. When we are filled with joy, we are connected to God. When we are not joyful, we have lost our connection to all that is real. So, this is my message. It can be clarified with 3 simple words: surrender to joy. There is nothing to find. All we need to do is surrender. I mean, at each and every moment, we have a choice. Do we want to connect to the truth and the reality of who we are and extend God's love to our brother? Or do we block God's love and go into that egoic mindset, which is based on fear? And myself, I still, even though intellectually I'm very clear that the only thing that's real is the love, and when I have myself plugged into my God socket, I'm very happy. It's still very challenging in this earthly plane, because there is just so much fear-based thinking that is just prevalent. Yeah, I have been listening to Course in Miracles again on Audible, and I am being reminded that God needs me as much as I need him. I'm reminded that God is lonely without his sons, and I am lonely without him. And he wants me so very badly to open my heart as often as possible and allow him to love me. Um, and I do my best to discipline my mind and allow God's love into my being as often as possible. Today's lesson is lesson 341. It's the 341st day of 2024. I believe I've been known to make mistakes, but I believe we're on lesson 341. I can attack but my own sinlessness, and it is only that which keeps me safe. So it's my innocence, it's my sinlessness, it's my purity that keeps me safe. So it's important for me to embody that way of being as often as possible. Thoughts, anyone? Myrna?
I can attack but my own sinlessness, and it is only that which keeps me safe. And it just tells us that we attack ourselves. That's what we're attacking. We're not attacking, we think we're attacking the outside world when when we spout fear and, disregard for, the truth. And that, we are constantly attacking ourselves, and that brings on fear. And fear is a big thing. It really is. I mentioned before, and maybe we can have a little discussion around this because I just discovered something about myself. Um, and I talked a little bit about yesterday at one of the meetings, but I really want to bring it up again because Gloria said something about, well, let's talk about a miracle, the miracle. I had my procedure. It was a heart valve replacement at the end of October. Well, what happened before I was just supposed to be discharged from the hospital is I had to me, it was really must have been devastating because, my heart started to beat at 200 beats a minute, and it brought in a lot of cardiologists, and bells and whistles were going off. And all I could think of, my God, what if I was discharged and this happened later on? What if I was discharged? And I suppose this must have been within my fear system, it must have been lurking within because I went home and I was never really feeling great. I really wasn't. What was happening was that my blood pressure was going up and down and up and down, and I was not feeling well. I was feeling chest pain. And I spoke to you, Susan, during the week, and I didn't even tell you that the night before Thanksgiving, it was so bad. My pressure was so high that the doctor took me into the hospital. I spent Wednesday night in the hospital. Anyway, they took they did all the things that hospitals do. I had EKGs, they took blood, they took my blood pressure, and couldn't really find anything significant. They sent me home the following day. And I was just not well. What was so disconcerting was that my pressure would go up and down and up and down, and sometimes very high. And I really didn't, and I was not feeling well, not 100%. Anyway, Tuesday night, there was a meeting and everybody was talking about their fear. And somebody said, my fear is, I keep the lights on in my house because I don't like to be in the dark. And somebody else said, I always lock my door. I always remember, I'm always make sure that my house is secure, whatever it was. And I thought about that, and I added, I said, it's funny. I'm very, very careless about that. I don't lock my door. In fact, people that know me are always kind of chastising me because I tend to be a little careless about that. Anyway, and my remark was, well, I have different fears. I must have different fears, and everybody has different fear. But after I left that meeting, what happened was I said, what is my fear? What is my fear? If I'm not, I'm not afraid of dying. And suddenly it came to me, what is my fear? My fear is that I was going to have a heart attack. Okay. Because my blood, because of what happened in the hospital before I was discharged. And that's why my pressure was going up and down and so forth. It came to me that that's what my fear is. And then I kind of, understood completely that I'm never alone. My fear was that it was going to happen again and I was going to be alone, because what comes through my mind is, well, what if it happened again when I was driving? If I was driving, what if it happened again if I was in the shower? So the fear was really kind of about the about the concern that I was going to be alone. This would happen again and I would be alone. But what happened once I recognized it, understanding that I'm never alone, and in fact, when I kept telling myself, well, what if I was discharged and this happened later on? Well, the truth is I wasn't discharged. It happened in the hospital. And in fact, when I was taken into the hospital on Wednesday, they couldn't find anything significantly wrong. And that the recognition was that perhaps because I was in a hospital, so my pressure was normal. It was just when I was by myself, that's what the fear was. But the whole revelation, the whole beauty, and I really even call it a miracle, was the aha, that's what I was afraid of. But you know what happened? My pressure's been normal. I've been feeling fine. I've been taking my pressure, blood pressure, which they told me to take every day. Nothing. I'm completely, I don't have that. I'm not, my pressure has been the way it's supposed to be. So it was the fear. And sometimes we're so afraid that we don't recognize where our fear is. We don't recognize that we're afraid of something. And until we face it and come to terms with it, it really, it affects the body. It affects our health. So our fear, again, was the recognition is that, oh my God, I understood that it affects our health. So if we're fearful, the body reacts to that. So I really had to bring that up because it was so significant to me. I've been fine once I understood what the problem was. So I just had to relate that. I had to talk about that. And so anyway, yeah.
Gloria?
Well, thank you for sharing that, Myrna. I mean, that really is saying that when he tells us that all trials are lessons yet unlearned, presented once again, that where we made a faulty choice, a new one can be made. So that was actually a gift to you in that recognition. And we were talking just before about honesty and moving deeper in the honesty, which is actually consistency, which is actually the acceptance of what I am. So what was given you there is the fact to say, again, I'm not a body, I'm free, I'm as God created me. And even if the body seemingly ceased to be, the mind of God is eternal. And that's what you are. So that was really, really beautiful. And I think that's how we started out with the workbook lesson, by accepting, let's see, I did have a thought on that, but I can attack but my own sinlessness, and it is only that which keeps me safe. So we're attacking our sinlessness by accepting that ego, accepting that false mind that is fear, that is saying, oh, what if this, what if that? And once we recognize our sinlessness, as you so beautifully expressed, that, revelation of that I am presence never dies and is always with me, that's what keeps us safe. So thanks so much for that. Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you both. Love that story, Myrna. Very, very beautiful story. It was everything here in this earthly classroom is a blessing or a lesson. So that was such a beautiful lesson that turned into a blessing. I mean, we're here, I believe. I've been listening to a lot of Course in Miracles podcast. Next Level Soul podcast is one of my favorite podcasts right now. And Alex, the host, had this guest from South Africa. Her name was Rhea. And she was talking about just our our reason for being here. And she grew up with a lot of hardship, a lot of incest, a lot of rape, a lot of struggles. And through overcoming her challenges, she's really opened up to become just a clear, wise channel. I just loved everything that she was talking about. I mean, Course in Miracles tells us also that we are here to learn the truth of who we are. We are here to express God's love to this world. You know, it's like before the separation occurred, all we were was light and we were love. But how it was once explained to me is if you're light and everything else is light, if you're white and you're surrounded by white, how can you really, because that would be non-duality or non-contrast. You can't even know who you are if everything around you is the same. So if I'm love and I'm surrounded by love and there is no darkness, well, I don't really know what love is because love is everywhere. So we came to this world where there's contrast in order to learn by experiencing the opposite. I believe that's what's happening. So, you know, through my challenges, through my triggers, which I encounter daily, you know, it's up to me. Do I want to keep myself plugged into my God socket, or do I want to let fear get the best of me? And it is challenging, but when I make the right choice, I'm really happy, you know, when I can stay connected to love despite the triggers that I encounter. You know, I feel really good. And this is what Course in Miracles is teaching me to do. You know, Myrna brought up fear and how she learned that fear has no power over her. You know, we all have fear. Everyone has fear. I have so many fearful places in my mind, but A Course in Miracles is telling me that none of this is real. So if I depend on God and I allow him to guide my mind, fear has no power over me, because the fear is just illusory anyway. It's not real. I mean, there's so many. Okay, so the first is chapter 1 that I opened to. I wanted to open to this when I heard Myrna talk about this fearful situation that she was in and that she overcame. It says here, perfect love casts out fear. If fear exists, then there is not perfect love. But only perfect love exists. If there is fear, it produces a state that does not exist. So if I'm fearful, I'm actually not thinking, because the only thoughts that are real are the thoughts that are aligned with love, you know? And then it goes on to say here, which I have read over and over again in chapter 2, it says, whenever you are afraid, it is a sure sign that you have allowed your mind to miscreate and have not allowed me to guide it. So whenever I'm afraid, I'm actually blocking God's love. Whenever I'm afraid, I'm siding with my ego. So it's up to me at the point where I'm experiencing the fear. How I do it is I pray, I focus on the love, you know, and it's not me that takes me away from the fear. I believe it's Christ that is there whenever I call upon him, and I can feel the fear subside. And it's such a beautiful correction that I experience. And then another very powerful paragraph here in A Course in Miracles is, the correction of fear is your responsibility. My responsibility. Christ can't eradicate it for me, because, to be honest, he doesn't really see it, because he's just all love. So the correction of fear is your responsibility. When you ask for release from fear, you are implying that it is not. You should ask instead for help in the conditions that have brought the fear about. These conditions always entail a willingness to be separate. At that level, you can help it. And then one of my favorite lines here, you are much too tolerant of mind wandering and are passively condoning your mind's miscreations. So whenever I am afraid, I am not in my right mind. And it's really, up to me to identify the fear, give it to the Holy Spirit so he can help me get to the other side of it. And on that note, Glorian gave me a heart. Thank you so very much, Glorian. On that note, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Myrna and Glorian because I need to go. But thank you for letting me stay for the first 20 minutes.
Great, Susan. The 20 minutes just flew. I can't believe
Yeah,
it.
that was tremendous what you said. I'll pick up on it from there. Thank you, and
Oh, thank
have a
you.
joyous day.
Thank you.
Enjoy the day, honey. I'll talk to you. See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
So,
I love what you said there because it was so much. And Dove had said something the other day, run towards your triggers. And that's really what we want to do because the triggers are showing us our false thinking. And what she also said about, if we're aligned with the wrong mind and recognizing that the purification doesn't come from the ego, it comes from the surrender of that false mind and allowing Holy Spirit to reinterpret the mistaken belief for us. And what you said about being responsible for what we see, we're responsible also to choose again and to choose for love. So that was beautiful what she just shared.
it really was. Yeah, I like that. It makes me see all the more that, that is spiritual as I think I am, and as connected to spirit and God and Jesus. Well, it's all one. I realize that, but I kind of, look at it not as separate, but as one and the same, just different names. And I'm particularly connected to Jesus. And I regard, he is my savior, and the love that I have for him. And it's because I feel the love that comes from him. And yet, with all of this, how can I feel fear? But the ego has its way of just digging its claws into into the peace that we want to feel. It just does. It just doesn't allow us to feel peace. And once we see that, then we can do something about it. But if we never see it, then we're lost to the ego. And even with this, as much as I know that I'm protected, as much as I feel loved, the ego kind of came in through the back door by giving me a fear that I was going to be alone, that something terrible was going to happen to me. Not that I'm afraid of dying, because I'm not afraid of dying, but that something terrible would befall me, and that I would be alone. And the Course in Miracles talks about aloneness, that you're never alone. Obviously, the Course in Miracles sees that that is one of our great fears, that being alone. And that's terrifying. It really is, thinking that we have to deal with something alone. But, when we look at it through the eyes of God, we realize that we're never alone. And that, I'm so glad this happened, because, the Course in Miracles tells us, all lessons, all things are lessons God would have me learn. This was an invaluable lesson that I learned, because the fear of being alone, I think, was wiped away, recognizing once I saw what was happening, and I almost laughed at it. And I said, well, if I'm not afraid of dying, and that I know that I'm never alone, what am I afraid of? And that really healed me immediately, because I almost felt a peace come over me, and I just knew in my heart of hearts that my problem was just gone, without even having to test it. I just knew it. I knew by the way I felt immediately. So, it made me see that we allow this to become foremost in our thoughts, when it really need not be. And I learned a lot from that. And it's just recognizing, as a lesson 341 tells us, I can attack but my own sinlessness. I am a sinless creature of God, if you will. I am sinless. I was created sinless. I I perceive myself as other than that, and that creates fear. So when we recognize that we're completely sinless and there's nothing that we have to hold ourselves, you know, in fear of, then we become more aligned to the truth, to the love, to the peace. All that takes over. So, yeah, I just want your thoughts about that, Gloria.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, Myrna, and thank you so much, for bringing this up today, because this is helpful to all of us. And that recognition that we can have the miracle with a change of mind. And what you were saying, God goes with me wherever I go. And I'm sustained by the love of God. These are the things that are revealed to us as these opportunities present themselves so we can choose again. And I know for myself, when I had that experience when I was dying, I just, recognized that I'm sustained by grace. Grace is my sufficiency. And that was all. And then the miracle occurs because it shifts perception. And that's when I mentioned to you before, he tells us here, this comes in before today's lesson. What is a miracle? A miracle is a correction. It does not create nor really change at all. It merely looks on devastation and reminds the mind that what it sees is false. And that's what happened to you. You recognize that, your reality is changeless. It undoes error, but does not attempt to go beyond perception, nor exceed the function of forgiveness. And that just really means non-judgment. Thus, it stays within time's limits, yet it paves the way for the return of timelessness and love's awakening. For fear must slip away under the gentle remedy it brings. And that was your experience. You were no longer fearful when you accepted the reality. And he goes on to say, a miracle contains the gift of grace, for it is given and received as one. And thus it illustrates the law of truth the world does not obey because it fails entirely to understand its ways. A miracle inverts perception, which was upside down before, and thus it ends the strange distortions that were manifest. And that was exactly your experience. You looked at it differently with the eyes of spirit, and it changed your perception into true perception. Now is perception open to the truth? And there it is. Now is forgiveness seen as justified. So ultimately, what you were sharing was coming to a place of the recognition that I'm never alone and accepting the reality of I am, which is not choosing to judge the seeming symptom, but to accept the reality of what you are. And he goes on to say, forgiveness is the home of miracles. Non-judgment is the home of miracles, being willing to see it differently. The eyes of Christ deliver them to all they look upon in mercy and in love. So it was the willingness to see it different. Perception stands corrected in his sight, and what was meant to curse has come to bless. And so you took this seeming challenge as an opportunity to bless, to accept what you are and come to a blessing, making no demands on reality, not choosing not to see with the limiting eyes of the body of the ego and project something on what's really there, which is grace and love and what you said, that, recognizing God goes with me wherever I go. And each is laid before the word of God upon the universal altar to creator and creation in the light of perfect purity and endless joy. And that's the acceptance of what we are. And we can only be in the endless joy when we do accept the truth of what I am. We can't have joy from the ego. The ego has to be laid aside. The fear has to be put down, and we accept that reality. And that is our joy. And that is our gratitude. Gratitude is the highest form of prayer, Jesus tells us. And that gratitude is for what I am. And then it says the miracles taken first on faith, because to ask for it implies the mind has been made ready to conceive of what it cannot see and does not understand. So there you had faith in accepting true perception of your reality. Yet faith will bring its witnesses to show you what it rested on is really there, and thus the miracle will justify your faith in it and show it rested on a world more real than what you saw before, a world redeemed from what you thought was there. So that was it, Myrna. I mean, you received the miracle, the healing, the grace, the shift from fear to love, which is what the miracle is, with that seeming challenge, which became an opportunity for you to bless. It became a blessing to you, and then you accepted it. You shared it with all of us here today, which blessed all of us. So thank you.
Yeah, I like that. I like what you were reading. We talked about earlier. You said you'd like to talk about a miracle, and I just opened the book to lesson 341, and there it was. What is a miracle? It just kind of, I opened up the book, and there it was. What is a miracle? And what what you're reading and what you're saying, and in your in your wisdom in interpreting all of this, it's really beautiful, because everything you said I had to agree with and I experienced. And this chapter here, the last chapter, is jumping out at me. Miracles fall, because it's so poetic. It seems so poetic, this last chapter. Miracles fall like drops of healing rain from heaven on a dry and dusty world, where starved and thirsty creatures come to die. Now they have water. Now the world is green, and everywhere the signs of life spring up to show that what is born can never die, for what has life has immortality. To me, that I just feel so illuminated from that paragraph, because you realize that it's devastating. The ego is absolutely devastating. It's a dry and dusty, thirsty world, and we're just looking for a place to kind of just find healing. We just need water to kind of satisfy that thirst. I mean, it's all said so beautifully, because interpreting it's just telling us that we just rely on the miracle to make us see that that everything is beautiful, and everything is green, and everything is watered. It's our thoughts that bring us this fear that that really there's a difference between life and death, because we're in hell. We're in hell unless we really recognize that there's no reason to be in hell, that we should really understand that that heaven is right here on earth. All we have to do is discover it, be open to it, and want it, and want it. And it really is, this week really created a lot of healing for me, and a lot of peace, because I discovered something that to me was just invaluable, that we just need to recognize that we are creatures of sinlessness. We're made that way. We were born free of any kind of devastation that we've created for ourselves. And once we look on devastation, and see what it is, as the first paragraph tells us, it reminds the mind that what it sees is false. And that's really all it is, that what my mind is seeing is false. And if we constantly see that everything is false, we're living in the world. To live in the world is, we can bring it joy by living in the world, and seeing the world as it is. Not, we're not going to change the world. We just have to change our mind about the world. And once we see that and live in the world instead of being of the world, there is a big difference between being in the world and not of the world. Because to be of the world is to judge it. I think that's what it's saying. To be in the world is not to judge, just to live as you were created, and to really accept the world and bring it life through our thoughts, through our love. Yeah. So you talked about having an NDE, a near-death experience. You want to talk about that a little bit? I would love to hear more about that.
I'll talk to you more about that some other time in private
Okay.
on that because I might actually do something with it. So
Yeah.
I certainly will. And basically, I can say this that, it's taught me that there's absolutely no death.
Yes.
There is no death. And that changeless mind that we accept, that changeless dwelling place is what we are. And there's no end to that.
Are you
Um,
thinking of writing a book
well,
or
we'll see. We'll see.
oh,
I just want to say that from what you said, what was coming to me, and the goal of this course is inner peace. And what the beauty is of what you expressed is that you came to a place of inner peace with it, which is oneness. And we can only experience that oneness once we accept ourselves as love. And, miracles wait on welcome. So we recognize that all we have to do is open our minds and hearts to the miracle, which is the shift from fear to love, and allow that love to be expressed through us, accepting it as what I am, the love of God. And when you were reading this, miracles fall like drops of healing rain from heaven on a dry and dusty world. Miracles, the shift from fear to love, fall like drops of healing rain from heaven. Heaven is from out of time, the experience of oneness and love from out of time on a dry and dusty world. The dry and dusty world is the projection of the ego, where starved and thirsty creatures come to die, starved of life, thirsty for God, come to die. Now they have water. When we accept the love of God for as what I am, the miracle, the shift from fear to love, now they have watered life, and now the world is green with life, and everywhere the signs of life spring up because it becomes the reflection of the healed mind, recognizing that the miracle is just the correction of the perception of the false mind, which is projecting the fear and guilt that we seemingly see, the devastation, the dry, dusty world out there. And the acceptance of the miracle to the love just heals all that. And everywhere the signs of life spring up to show that what was born can never die because our mind's been healed. It's like, and for what has life has immortality, that changeless dwelling place, the sinlessness, the guiltlessness that we experience when we accept the reality of what we are. And that's the arc is entered two by two, that recognition that beyond the concept that I see of my brother is the light of Christ. And that's how the arc is entered two by two, in that recognition that there's only one. And in that there's peace and healing. So the goal is, and you mentioned something before about it, the only place that healing occurs is in our mind. And that there's nothing outside of us except the images projected out there to show us what we think. So if we are in that false mind, we're going to see the images of devastation. If we choose to align our mind with true perception, we move into that space where what we're projecting is, and not only projecting because it's the ego projects and makes, the ego extends. So then we're becoming that instrument, that vessel to extend that love and light that we've received for ourselves, that we've accepted for ourselves out there on the world. Thanks so much.
yeah, that's a split mind, actually. I mean, in other words, it seems that one part of the mind is attacking the other. The ego mind is attacking the sinless part of us, and the part of us that's sinless really has no reason to do the ego any battle. To come to terms with it, the ego just wait. I mean, the sinless part of us, the spirit part of us, the holy part of us, just just looks on and waits for the ego to have its little nervous breakdown, and it'll wait interminably. It's got all the patience for us. And and I see that, I really do. And we don't need to really have that within ourselves. This dueling aspect of the spirit versus ego. And I love that spirit is quiet, it's gentle, and we find it, when we go into that quiet place. People do it through meditation. They do it through, a serene surrounding, the sereneness of nature. And it's really very, very beautiful when we understand it and we discover it. It's there for us. And sometimes, we don't even know that we're slipping out of the spirituality of who we are. We don't even know it. I mean, the ego is so cunning that it slips in and out, and that's where the mind chatter, unless we control the chattering of the mind, we don't really recognize what's happening. Again, to be aware of the fact that our mind is wandering and chattering, and to bring it back to holiness. It takes practice. It doesn't come, on its own. I mean, we have to see it. We have to recognize it, and do it. Practice it, because practicing really keeps us from the mind wandering that we're so tolerant of. It's like an unruly child, and we just let it have its way. It's just going to, just become more unruly. So it's a matter of understanding that we're really veering out into something that, that is only going to bring us thoughts of devastation, because devastation isn't real anyway. It's just our thoughts that create that devastation, just as what happened with me. My thoughts created such devastation that it caused my blood pressure to go crazy, which also frightened me, because before the surgery, before this procedure, I always had a normal blood pressure, and here I was seeing this erratic, change in me, which was frightening. And I until I realized it was the fear, and it was my ego that was causing all of this. I was reacting in a physical way that was really hurting me physically. Because the body, what is the body? The body just obeys the mind. The body does nothing. The mind controls the body, and so that was a tremendous, even though I knew it. Okay. I knew it, and then I blew it. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Do know it, and I like it, and I saw it for what it was. So that was really it was a blessing. It was really a blessing for me, for a blessing, and it brought me closer to, well, I was always close to Jesus. I talk to Jesus every day. I don't even, I mean, and I get answers. If I'll do something and I'll get a bad result, I'll ask Jesus about it. And the answer that I've gotten is, well, you should have asked me first. You forgot, right? So I love the answers. So they always get an answer.
Right.
So I'll turn it back to you, Gloria.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, Myrna, and that's exactly what we're here to do. The idea is the inner peace, and we get that inner peace through our communication link with the Holy Spirit, the higher self, that part of our mind that remembers God. And as you were speaking, you didn't blow it, you knew it, and you know it, and you reinforced it for yourself. And for me, it always comes to me, that all health issues are really there to take us deeper into that realization that I am not a body. So when we can recognize that any seeming health issue for anyone, because of course, if somebody else presents it to us, we own it. What we see, we own. And it gives now both of us an opportunity to say here, that I'm not a body. I'm free and I'm as God created me. And then we'll really have that peace that the Course talks about. Because once we recognize ourselves as spirit in a state of grace forever, then nothing can ever change or have any effect on that. And that is the changeless dwelling place with which we are for always. That's our immortality, that's our eternity. I also like what you said there about practice and vigilance, and it's so important because the ego speaks first, and every single seeming thought that comes up for us is an opportunity to make a different choice. And it's always there, these feelings are showing us what we think, and then we can choose again. So everything becomes a gift, and every single moment becomes an opportunity to bless. And to bless means make no demands. And making no demands, we're not judging the world and we're moving into greater forgiveness, which is non-judgment. And like the prayer says, forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you. If we could just get that one sentence, to me, that's the entire thing. Forgive us our illusions. Let us recognize that everything we seemingly see is a projection of fear and it's not real. And help us to accept our true relationship with you, as we were just saying, that I am that spirit in a state of grace forever and nothing has any effect on that. Then we're truly living the happy dream. The happy dream is not to make a better illusion or, change this or whatever. It's to step out of that fearful mind into the reality of I am and live from that place through grace and illumination. And the illumined walk without fear by grace. Joel tells us that. So we can only experience that once we're willing and open to accept that higher mind and allow it to guide and lead and direct our lives. So what you were also saying, I don't know if you wanted to read it. We have like 10 more minutes, but the rest of this lesson is really good as far as the sinlessness and the innocence and the one self that we're speaking about. So did you want to read it?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to it. Lesson 3. Are you talking about
341, 341.
Yeah, 341. Going back to it. Okay, 330. Okay, so we were reading What is a Miracle. You're talking about that?
We finished that. Today's lesson is 341. I can attack but my own sinlessness.
Yeah,
And it is.
Okay, I can attack but my own sin. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to read from my book, Private Lessons with Jesus, because I like this particular lesson in my book.
Perfect.
I'm just
Perfect.
going to read from that. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
God created you sinless and of light. There is a lovely energy within which shines its light outward. When the ego attacks your sinlessness, you do not perceive yourself as a child of light, and guilt becomes the effect of the ego's unruliness. Ego and spirit both dwell within your mind, causing it to be split. It is one mind divided in two. One part of the mind appears to attack the other. The part of the mind which is spirit stands tall, while the aggressor, the ego, attacks. The ego always declares war on spirit. Yet spirit looks upon the ego and knows the ego has no power over it, and therefore has no cause to do it battle. That is why you are capable of such a wide range of emotions. Spirit is forever at peace, and ego is forever at war. Yet your sinlessness secures your safety. All that is left is fear caused by uncertainty of thought. Through it all, God's love keeps you protected. It is up to you to identify with spirit and not the ego, allowing the mind to become whole and absent of conflict. Practice this, and therein lies your safety. So, this book, when I was writing, was really channeling. I mean, when I say I hate to call it channeling, because what is channeling? To me, what was coming to me when I asked Jesus to tell me what each lesson should mean to me personally, and I would put the title of the lesson into the computer, and then I would sort of close my eyes, and my fingers would just glide along the keyboard. But it was just, what was coming to me were not only words, they were thoughts, they were feelings. It was a combination of everything. So where it was coming from, all I know is that that 1 year was such a special one for me. Every day I would do another lesson, and I was just illuminated by what I was feeling as a result of it, and it just started from the title of each lesson. So, that was almost like a springboard, into the lesson. The title itself, the titles themselves reveal so much, why don't you read from now the Course in Miracles 341? I just read this.
Well, that was beautiful. And I'd like to say, to what you were saying, of course, that's your inspiration and your guidance and your wisdom that's pouring through you. We don't want to use the word channel, instrument as received. So, you're recognizing that you're an instrument for God's healing in the world, and that is what's pouring through you there, and that comes from illumination and the illuminated mind. But what we remember is we can be in these great heights of illumination, but as soon as we pick up the grievance, which is identification with the body, we're back in hell. So then we have the work to do to get back. So everyone's all the same, and it's a capacity that's available to everyone once they learn to move into that quiet mind and listen to the still small voice. So that's beautiful. And I like what you were talking about, when you were reading, and it was coming to me like the sphere of pure light. The other book, one of the other books says that you're a sphere of pure light. And in our book, it talks about the great rays. And for me, it always comes the light beyond the concept. So that's what you were talking about, this ever-present permeating light that becomes extension once we allow it to flow through us. And, Joel will talk about moving into the silence and receiving the click. And after we receive the click, then the Spirit of God just goes forth and makes those crooked places straight. So, and something else was coming to me when you were reading that, like with your experience of realizing that, God goes with me wherever I go. Jesus tells us in the Course 1,000 times a day, just ask, who walks with me? Remind yourself. And not that he's separate from you, not with you, but as you. And, that's what we are here to do, is to be this emissary of light in the world. And you sure are. So with that said, I will read this from lesson 341.
Yes.
Can attack but my own sinlessness. So we're recognizing there that I am the sinlessness, innocence created in grace as an extension of God's love. And I'm the one responsible for attacking that when I choose the fearful voice of the ego. And it is only that which keeps me safe. So I am one self united with my Creator. That is our salvation, to remember that sinlessness, that guiltlessness, and that innocence. Father, your Son is holy. Father, your Son, the extension of the love that I am, is one. I am he on whom you smile in love and tenderness so dear and deep, and still the universe smiles back on you. So once we accept in the holy instant the Spirit of God that I am, then that's what we are then seeing, the reflection of that smiling back on us. And the universe here is pointing to eternity, to everywhere. I am everywhere, and everywhere is here now, just waiting on our welcome. So deep and still, the universe smiles back on you and shares your holiness. Everything is one. There's nothing separate and apart from God, the one singular reality that I am. How pure, how safe, how holy then are we abiding in your smile, with your love bestowed upon us, living one with you, accepting that I am an extension of the love of God as I have been created. in brotherhood and fatherhood, complete the oneness. The brotherhood of the Christ is those joining together, recognizing error for what it is and choosing to live in the love of the oneness of the light, the unbroken light beyond that concept of fear. In sinlessness so perfect that the Lord of sinlessness conceives us as his son. This again is just so beautiful, talking about that innocence, that guiltlessness, that experience of the oneness that I am when we retreat from our projecting of our judgments, good and evil, right and wrong, on the reality of the Christ, on the grace of God. That's all that is. The Lord sinlessness conceives us as his son, a universe of thought completing him, the oneness and the wholeness of everything. Let us not then attack our sinlessness. Let us not line our mind with the false mind, with that fearful voice of the ego, with the guilt that it projects onto the love of God, the eternity that's always ever present. For it contains the word of God to us, and in its kind reflection are we saved. So when we accept the love that I am, that's the reflection of love's presence that then comes back to us. If we accept this guilty, fearful mind of the ego, we're projecting fear and guilt, our unresolved fear and guilt upon upon the world that's then showing us the images, which is imagination, not real at all, but it's a gift. The projected images, aspects of our imagination is showing us what we think so that we can then make another choice and remove that unresolved guilt from our mind by allowing the Holy Spirit to come in and reinterpret for us the truth of what we are. Thanks.
That was beautiful, Gloria, and really beautiful, because everything you say, is truth. It's coming from a place of love, and love is truth. I love this because it's a prayer, really. The italics is really this lesson is written in prayer, and to say it, Father, your son is holy. So I'm holy. I am God's son. I am holy. That in itself tells me that I'm very loved. Your son is holy. I am he on whom your smile and love and tenderness so dear and deep, and still the universe smiles back on. Okay, I'm going to read that again. I am he on whom you smile in love and tenderness so dear and deep, and still the universe smiles back on you. And so I am privy to God's smiling on me. That's God's smile, which is light, which is love, which is everything, really. It says right here, you smile in love and tenderness so dear, and still the universe smiles back on you and shares your holiness. So the universe is holy. I mean, if we look on everything as holy and not fearful, then look what we can accomplish. Can you imagine if the world was recognized? And it will come to that. I really believe that we're headed towards that more so than ever before. I feel the energy of a different energy. It's not a dense energy, it's a pure energy that I'm feeling, and we're headed towards that. And it makes me see that the world is getting it, the universe is getting it. And that to me is why I'm here. I believe that's my purpose in life, is to see this happen, to be a part of it, to recognize that it's a wonderful time to be alive, even though we seem to perceive so much devastation. It's just almost as if it's just like a sandstorm, sweeping up all the sand, but it's going to settle, and it's going to settle and be calm and pure and holy. And and I think that I see the world and the universe as becoming a place of love. The world will be a place of love. We don't have to change anything. It will change. It will change because collectively, I think love is becoming so ingrained in the collection of the human being, the people that are that we're not separate, we're one. And that oneness is becoming more and more apparent, and it's growing, it's becoming greater and greater. So yeah, how pure, how safe, how holy then are we, abiding in your smile and with all your love bestowed on us, living one with you in brotherhood and fatherhood complete. This is all, it's actually, it's here, but we didn't see it that it's here. So we see it, it's coming, it's coming. It really is. It's what the world is going to be. It really is. I think the next generation is going to be the best generation of all. The young people of the world are becoming, fitting into their DNA is fitting into this higher energy. They're coming into the world, and children are beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah, that was just so beautiful what you shared there, because that is the second coming. The second coming is the acceptance of the Christ within. And then in that acceptance of what I am, our vibration raises, and then that's extended out from us. And what was coming to me when you were speaking was our holiness blesses the world. So once we accept that holiness, that oneness of the Christ that I am, then that's how we bless. We accept the oneness, no longer making any judgments or projections onto the world, onto let all things be as they are. They're perfect. So we then are in that state of oneness and glory where we no longer project, but we bless. Our holiness, our oneness blesses the world by making no demands on it, no judgments, which is what he said there, that complete forgiveness. We move into completing him. We move into the completion and the acceptance of true forgiveness, which is that God's son's not guilty, and what we seemingly see never happened. Because why? Because we relinquish our projections. We give up our judgments, and then all there is blessing, because it's our self-imposed limiting ideas, our judgments that we're placing on reality that's making it seem like it's like this. But there's nothing ever separate and apart from the kingdom of God, which is the Christ consciousness within, which is what I am.
You just articulated that so beautifully.
We said the same thing, but it's the same thing.
I love you.
I love you too, sweetie. And I think we're done. So have a joyous weekend. I love you. And I'll be talking to you later. I'm going to send you girls what I said before.
Great.
I read this morning. Bye-bye.
Thanks, you guys, so much. Beautiful session, and I appreciate everything you've said. I love you, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.